I was clinically dead for 2 days, and what Jesus revealed about September 2025 will change everything you thought you knew about our world's future. Have you ever wondered what happens when the heart stops beating and the brain shuts down? I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a cardiac surgeon from Denver, and until 3 months ago, I would have told you that death is simply the end. I spent 15 years saving hearts, bringing people back from the brink, always believing the afterlife was just wishful thinking. Stories people tell themselves to cope with fear of the unknown. My life was perfectly ordered, methodical, controlled, rational. Every morning I'd review surgical cases over coffee, then spend 12 to 14 hours with my hands literally holding human hearts. I had published papers on cardiac resuscitation, spoken at medical conferences. If you had asked me about near-death experiences, I would have dismissed them as hallucinations from oxygen deprivation. Simple science. I remember that Tuesday morning in June like it was yesterday. I was scheduled to perform a complex aortic valve replacement on a 67-year-old grandfather named Robert. The procedure was going smoothly, routine even. I had done hundreds of similar surgeries. My hands were steady, my focus sharp. The monitors showed all normal readings. Everything was under control, just the way I liked it. But then, as I was placing the final sutures, I felt a strange sensation in my chest. A flutter, then a sharp pain that shot down my left arm. For a moment, I thought it was just fatigue, the result of standing for 6 hours straight. I tried to shake it off to continue working, but the pain intensified. My vision started to blur around the edges. "Dr. Mitchell, are you all right?" I heard my surgical assistant ask, but her voice sounded distant, muffled, like she was speaking from the other end of a tunnel. The next thing I remember is collapsing. My colleagues later told me that I went into sudden cardiac arrest right there in the operating room. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The cardiac surgeon's heart had stopped while she was operating on someone else's heart. The crash team worked on me for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of CPR, defibrillation, emergency medications. My heart wouldn't restart. They rushed me to the trauma bay where my own colleagues, people I had worked alongside for years, desperately tried to bring me back. Dr. Anderson, my closest friend and fellow surgeon, later told me that they had pronounced me dead twice. Twice they covered my face with a sheet. Twice they began the paperwork. But something kept pulling them back to try one more time. For 2 days, I existed in a place that medical science says doesn't exist. My body lay in the ICU, connected to machines, while my consciousness experienced something that would fundamentally change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what lies beyond. Let me be absolutely clear about who I was before this happened. I was the kind of doctor who rolled my eyes when colleagues mentioned miraculous recoveries. I was a scientist, trained to trust only what could be measured, tested, proven. I had never been particularly religious. I hadn't been to church since childhood Christmas services with my grandmother. When patients' families asked me to pray with them before surgery, I would politely excuse myself and let the chaplain handle those moments. If someone had told me this story 3 months ago, I would have recommended they see a psychiatrist. But what happened to me during those 2 days, and what Jesus showed me about September 2025, shattered everything I thought I knew about reality itself. The experience began gradually, like awakening from the deepest sleep imaginable. At first, there was simply an awareness that I was no longer in my body. I found myself floating above the trauma bay, watching the medical team work on my lifeless form below. The clarity was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I could see everything with impossible precision, the concerned expressions etched deep into their faces, the organized chaos of emergency medicine in action. The way Dr. Anderson's hands shook slightly as he administered chest compressions. I could even hear their whispered conversations, see the fear in their eyes as they worked desperately to save someone they cared about. What struck me most was the overwhelming peace that enveloped me like warm honey. There was no panic, no fear, despite watching my own body being worked on desperately by my colleagues. Instead, there was this incredible sense of lightness, of freedom. Imagine carrying a 100-pound backpack for 15 years, then suddenly having it lifted from your shoulders. That's what it felt like. The constant weight of responsibility, the pressure of life and death decisions, the stress that had become my normal. All of it simply melted away like ice in the sun. I tried to speak to them, to tell them I was okay, but they couldn't hear me. I reached out to touch Dr. Anderson's shoulder, to comfort him, but my hand passed right through. It was then that I realized I was experiencing something that shouldn't be possible, according to everything I had learned in medical school. As the hours passed, though time seemed to work differently in this state, I became aware that I wasn't alone in the room. There was a presence with me, something warm and compassionate that I couldn't quite see but could definitely feel. This presence seemed to be guiding me, preparing me for what was coming next. Then the journey truly began. I felt myself being pulled away from the hospital room, not violently or frighteningly, but gently, like being carried by a current of pure love that somehow had substance and warmth. The sterile white walls of the trauma bay began to shimmer and dissolve, and I found myself moving through what I can only describe as a tunnel of soft, golden light. This wasn't the harsh fluorescent lighting I knew from the hospital. This light was alive, breathing, welcoming. It pulsed with a rhythm that felt like the heartbeat of the universe itself, warm and embracing, like liquid sunshine rather than the harsh, blinding light I had always imagined from near-death stories. As I moved through it, I began to hear something extraordinary. Not with my ears, because I no longer had physical ears, but with my entire being. It was music, but unlike any music I had ever experienced. Imagine if love itself could sing, if joy could create melody, if peace could harmonize. It was as if the very fabric of the universe was singing, each note carrying emotions and meanings that human language could never express. I found myself weeping tears of pure happiness, though I had no eyes to cry with. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, but I wasn't impatient. There was no sense of urgency, no destination anxiety. I was simply experiencing the most profound peace I had ever felt. All the worries that had consumed my earthly life, surgical complications, hospital politics, mortgage payments, relationship struggles. They all seemed so insignificant now, like shadows that disappear when true light is shone upon them. As I continued to move through this sacred space, every fiber of my being began to vibrate with anticipation. I sensed that I was approaching something momentous, something that would change the very core of who I was. The light ahead was growing brighter, but not in a way that hurt or overwhelmed. It was like the difference between the artificial fluorescent lighting of the hospital, cold, sterile, lifeless, and the warm, life-giving light of the sun on the most perfect spring morning you can imagine. This light didn't just illuminate, it transformed everything it touched. And then, just as I thought I might emerge from the tunnel, I felt another presence joining me. This one was different from the gentle guide who had been with me since leaving my body. This presence radiated such love, such perfect understanding, that I immediately knew I was in the presence of something divine. Without seeing a face, without hearing a voice in the traditional sense, I somehow knew that Jesus Christ was there with me. Not the Jesus of stained glass windows or religious paintings. Those pale imitations could never capture what I experienced. This was a being of pure love and infinite wisdom, whose very presence communicated more than 1,000 sermons ever could. The love radiating from him wasn't just an emotion. It was a force of nature, like standing at the center of creation itself. Every cell of my consciousness was bathed in this love, and I understood for the first time what unconditional truly meant. The first thing he showed me wasn't about September 2025, but about love itself. Through this divine connection, knowledge flowed into me like water into a dry sponge. I understood that love isn't just an emotion or a human concept. It's literally the fundamental force that holds the universe together. Picture the most powerful electromagnet you can imagine, but instead of attracting metal, it attracts and binds every atom, every star, every heart in existence, every act of compassion, every moment of genuine care between human beings, every sacrifice made for another person. These aren't just nice gestures. They're literally participating in the same divine energy that spoke the stars into existence. Then, as we continued through this space that existed outside of normal time and dimension, Jesus began to show me things about the future, not in the way a movie plays on a screen, but as living knowledge that was somehow downloaded directly into my consciousness, like having the entire library of human experience suddenly available in my mind. But what he revealed next about September 2025 would shake me to my very core. What I saw about September 2025 wasn't just information. It was a warning wrapped in love, a revelation that came with both urgency and hope. And what I witnessed made my spirit both tremble with concern and soar with the most incredible hope I had ever felt. In that sacred moment, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. As I looked around, I saw him standing there. Jesus. Not as a distant figure in a painting or statue, but real, radiant, alive. His presence filled every corner of that sacred space with a love so profound it defied description. The light that emanated from him wasn't harsh or blinding. It was welcoming, like the warmth of a perfect sunrise that touches your face on the most beautiful morning you can imagine. His eyes held the wisdom of eternity, yet they looked at me with such intimate knowledge, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment throughout all of time. When he smiled, I felt every burden I had ever carried simply dissolve. The guilt, the fear, the doubt, all of it melted away in the presence of pure, unconditional love. My child. His voice resonated not just in my ears, but through every cell of my being. There is something you must understand, something the world needs to know. I found myself able to speak, though I hadn't expected words to come. Lord, I'm listening. He reached out his hand toward me, and the moment I took it, everything around us shifted. We were no longer in that peaceful meadow, but standing in what I can only describe as a cosmic viewing room, where the veil between dimensions had been completely lifted. Below us, I could see the Earth turning slowly in space, beautiful but fragile, like a precious blue marble suspended in the vast darkness. Look closer, Jesus said gently, and suddenly my vision zoomed in with impossible clarity. I saw the nations of the world spread out before me like a living, breathing map, where every heartbeat was visible. I could see into the hearts of world leaders, their fears, their pride, their desperate need to appear strong, while terror consumed them from within. The tensions weren't just building like storm clouds on the horizon. They were crackling with the electric intensity of lightning about to strike. In the east, I witnessed nuclear arsenals being prepared with trembling hands, fingers hovering over buttons that could end everything we've ever known. In the west, I saw the rising panic of populations who sensed in their very souls that something monumental was approaching, like animals before an earthquake, but couldn't quite grasp what it was. The world stands at a crossroads, Jesus explained, his voice resonating through every dimension of existence with a sound like gentle thunder. Humanity has forgotten that love, not power, is the force that moves the universe. They have forgotten that forgiveness, not revenge, is the path to true peace. As he spoke, I could feel the weight of every human choice, every moment of hatred or love, pressing against my consciousness like a living thing. Then he showed me something that made my spirit tremble with both awe and urgency. The vision shifted, and suddenly I was witnessing a blood moon rising over Jerusalem, but not like any lunar eclipse I had ever seen in my lifetime. This moon was deep crimson, like the color of fresh blood, casting an ethereal glow across the ancient city that made every stone seem to pulse with life. This wasn't just any blood moon. It was the blood moon, the one that would appear in September 2025. And as I watched it rise, I felt the entire spiritual realm holding its breath. This sign will mark the beginning of the final awakening, Jesus continued, his words rippling through reality itself. For too long, my children have been divided by the very religions that were meant to unite them in love. September 2025 will be the month when the veil between worlds grows thin, gossamer thin, when the spiritual realm breaks through into your physical world in ways that can no longer be denied, dismissed, or explained away by even the most skeptical minds. I watched in wonder as the vision expanded to show me something breathtaking. Spiritual beings of light, radiant, magnificent, more beautiful than anything human eyes have ever beheld, began making themselves known across the earth. They moved not through fear or judgment, but through waves of pure love and gentle guidance that washed over humanity like healing rain. I saw people from every nation, every faith, every background, suddenly awakening as if from a deep sleep, their eyes opening wide as they understood that they were all connected, all part of one divine family. The barriers of race, religion, and nationality dissolved like morning mist before the rising sun. But first, Jesus said, and his tone grew more serious, carrying the weight of infinite compassion mixed with urgent concern. There will be a time of great testing. The nuclear tensions you see building will reach a critical point, a moment when the fate of every soul on Earth hangs by the thinnest thread. World leaders will stand at the very brink of unleashing destruction, unlike anything humanity has ever witnessed. This will be the ultimate moment of choice. Will they choose the path of love and forgiveness, or will they choose the path of fear and destruction? I felt tears streaming down my face, tears that somehow had more substance and meaning than any I had ever cried, as I witnessed this cosmic drama unfolding. Lord, how can such darkness be turned to light? Through my children who carry the message, he replied, squeezing my hand with infinite tenderness that felt like being embraced by the very essence of comfort itself. Those who have seen beyond the veil, who have experienced the reality of eternal love, must speak the truth boldly. The world needs to understand that every act of forgiveness sends ripples through the spiritual realm, like stones thrown into still water. I saw others around the world who had received similar revelations. Ordinary people like you and me, all speaking with one unified voice about the approaching spiritual awakening. I watched as people began to lay down their weapons, not just the physical weapons of war, but the far more dangerous weapons of hatred, prejudice, and unforgiveness that they carried buried deep in their hearts like festering wounds. And as they released these burdens, I could see light literally pouring from their beings. The blood moon in September 2025 will be visible to every person on Earth, Jesus continued. But not everyone will understand its significance. Those who do understand will become beacons of hope, like lighthouses guiding ships through the storm, in a world that desperately needs to remember its divine origin. They will help humanity remember that we are all one family, all children of the same eternal Father. They will help humanity remember that we are all one family, all children of the same eternal Father. As he spoke these words, I could see these beacons of light scattered across the globe, like stars coming alive in the darkness. As this incredible revelation came to a close, Jesus turned to face me directly. His expression was one of infinite compassion mixed with urgent purpose. When you return to your body, he said, you will remember everything. Not as a dream or a hallucination, but as the most real experience of your entire life. You will carry this message back to a world that needs to hear it now, more than ever. Tell them that love is still the greatest force in the universe. Tell them that forgiveness can still overcome any conflict. Tell them that September 2025 is not an ending, but a beginning. The beginning of humanity's return to its divine nature. I felt myself beginning to pull away from that sacred place, but Jesus' final words echoed through my consciousness with crystal clarity. Remember, my child, what religions have taught is only a shadow of the truth. I am not confined to any single faith or doctrine. I am the love that exists in every pure heart, the light that shines in every act of compassion, the peace that comes when humanity chooses unity over division. Share this message. The time is short, but hope is eternal. When I returned to my body, everything had changed. The moment my consciousness slammed back into my physical form, it was like being struck by lightning. Every cell awakened to a reality I had never imagined. Not just for me, but I could sense it deep in my bones. Something in the spiritual atmosphere of our entire world had shifted. I was no longer the same person who had laid down on that operating table. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the skeptic, had died in that operating room. I was now a messenger, a witness to the greatest truth humanity has ever needed to hear. In the days that followed my recovery, I threw myself into understanding what I had experienced with the same intensity I had once reserved for medical research. I studied ancient prophecies with trembling hands, researched astronomical events with eyes that now saw beyond the physical, and discovered that, indeed, a rare blood moon is scheduled to occur in September 2025. What I found went far beyond astronomical confirmation. I began to see the signs Jesus had shown me manifesting all around us, like pieces of a cosmic puzzle falling into place. The nuclear tensions crackling between world powers aren't just political posturing. They're the very crossroads moment he warned me about, the test that will define our species' future. The increasing spiritual awakening happening globally isn't just a trend or new age movement. It's preparation for what's coming, like flowers blooming before spring arrives. The growing hunger for authentic spirituality over rigid religiosity isn't coincidence. It's humanity's soul preparing to receive the greatest revelation in our history. We're all being called to remember who we truly are. Every night since my experience, I wake up with the same burning question searing through my heart like a brand. What will you do with this knowledge? We stand just months away from September 2025. The blood moon will rise whether we're ready or not. The spiritual veil will grow gossamer thin whether we're prepared or not. The choice between love and fear, between forgiveness and destruction, between unity and division, will present itself to every single human being on this planet. There will be no neutral ground, no hiding, no pretending we didn't know. But here's what gives me hope. Here's why I had to share this message with you. Why I risk everything, including my medical career. In that cosmic viewing room with Jesus, I didn't just see the potential for destruction. I saw the incredible, breathtaking potential for transformation. I saw a world where nuclear weapons are dismantled not through force or treaties, but through a collective awakening to our shared humanity that makes violence impossible. I saw religions laying down their centuries-old differences and embracing the universal truth that love is our true nature. I saw individuals like you and me choosing to forgive old wounds and extend grace to those who have hurt us, sending ripples of healing across the planet. The September 2025 blood moon isn't coming as judgment. It's coming as the most beautiful invitation humanity has ever received. An invitation for our species to step into its highest potential, to evolve beyond fear into love, beyond separation into unity. It's an invitation to remember that we are not separate beings fighting over limited resources like animals in the wild, but eternal souls temporarily having a human experience, all connected by the same divine love that holds the stars in their courses. The time for preparation is almost over. In just months, everything will change. Now you know what Jesus revealed to me about September 2025. The blood moon, the spiritual awakening, the choice between love and destruction that will define our species' future. You have the knowledge I was sent back to share. The question is no longer what's coming. You know that now. The question is what you'll do with this revelation. So, as I close this message, I want to leave you with the same truth that burns in my heart every single day. The truth that wakes me at 3 a.m. and follows me through every moment. Love is still the greatest force in the universe. Not the romanticized version we see in movies, but the raw, transformative power that holds galaxies together and can heal a wounded world. When that blood moon rises in September 2025, will you be ready? Will you have chosen love over fear in the small moments and the big ones? Will you have extended forgiveness where you once held resentment like a poison in your heart? Will you be part of the spiritual awakening that could literally save our world from the brink of destruction? Or will you be among those who see the signs but refuse to understand? Who witness the miracle but choose to remain asleep? I've shared what Jesus showed me. The vision, the warning, the hope. Now the responsibility passes to you. The choice is yours, and yours alone. The time is now. Not tomorrow, not when things get worse, but right now in this very moment. And remember, the hope is eternal, burning bright like that divine light I experienced, waiting to illuminate every heart that's ready to receive it. Love is the force that moves the universe. Let it move through you. The blood moon is coming. The spiritual veil will grow thin. The awakening begins in September 2025. Are you ready?